As we know, the World War I began in 1914. The principal cause of this war was the assassination of the Austrian Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife on June 1914 by a Bosnian revolutionary. But the actual causes are other that still are in debate. The first of these causes was the aliens. There exist so many aliens between 1879 and 1914. The first of these was in 1879. Germany and Austria-Hungary made an alliance to protect themselves from Russia. This is called the Dual Alliance. In 1881, Austria-Hungary made an alliance with Serbia to stop Russia gaining control of Serbia. This is called the Austro-Serbian Alliance. In 1882, Germany and Austria-Hungary made an alliance with Italy to stop Italy from taking sides with Russia. This is called the Triple Alliance. In 1894, Russia formed an alliance with France to protect herself against Germany and Austria-Hungary. This is called Franco-Russian Alliance. In 1904, Entente Cordial was an agreement, but not a formal alliance between France and Britain. In 1907, Anglo-Russian Entente was an agreement between Britain and Russia. In 1972, Triple Entente was made between Russia, France, and Britain to counter the increasing threat from Germany. And finally, in 1914, Britain, Russia, and France agreed not to sing for peace separately. This is called the Triple Entente. As a second cause, the imperialism, because by 1900 the British Empire extended over 5 continents, and France had control of large areas of Africa. And with the rise of industrialism, countries need new markets. This created a rivalry with Germany, who had scrambled to acquire colonies late and only had small areas of Africa. Later, the militarism, because Britain introduced the dreadnought, an effective battleship, in 1906. The Germans soon followed them, introducing their own battleships. A German called von Schlieffen also drew up a plan of action that involved attacking France throughout Belgium if Russia made an attack on Germany. Finally, the crisis. First, the Moroccan crisis that created tension between France and Germany in 1904, and the Bosnian crisis created tension between Serbia, supported by Russia, and Austria-Hungary, supported by Germany, on 1908.
These are the characteristics. In 1982, Triple Alliance was formed by Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. Later in 1907, the Triple Entente was formed and it was confirmed by Great Britain, France, and Russia. And they say that if any one nation went to war against any other, all the nations will become involved and it will start a war. Germany invaded Belgium with Schiphol plan and was the operational plan for a designated attack, and it was based in the belief that if the country went to war, Germany would be faced with a war on 2 fronts with France and Russia. There were 2 sides, the Allied power, France, Russia, England, Serbia, Belgium, Japan, Romania, Greece, and United States, and many other countries, and the Central powers, Germany, Austria-Hungary, Ottoman Empire, and Bulgaria. It was first truly modern war because there were new types of weapons and new forms of combat, like machine guns, tanks, airplanes, poison gas, camouflage, torpedoes, and many other weapons, and also the trenches, that it was called no man's land. There were whole docks for 1.5 meters and 2 meters deep or more, interconnected, in which the soldiers were protected for enemy fire. But the conditions were deplorable, like insanity, hunger, human waste, and food and dead bodies were not removed. Also, they faced with climate changes like rain or very hot days or very cold days. They recurred to the propaganda for the distraction of the public opinion and raised the patriotism in the people, and also warned of the dangers in which country was that made a lot of people join to the army of their countries. Many in part lost their territory and they were divided and disintegrated thanks to the conflagration.
Some of the consequences of this treaty are the following ones. At the end, Germany had to pay $37 billion for the reparations of the war. Thanks to that, the country suffered from large period of economic problems. Germans had to return every colony they owned in Africa and Asia. Besides, they weren't allowed to build submarines anymore, and the army was reduced to 100,000 soldiers. They returned the land they won from France in 1871, and the area of Rhineland was prohibited for them to put soldiers on. The territories of Germany, Austria-Hungary, Russia, and the Ottoman Empire were reduced too, and from the land that Russia lost, 5 nations were created, which were Poland, Finland, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. Austria and Hungary were no longer a nation. The Ottoman Empire ended, and Yugoslavia and Czechoslovakia were created.
The Great Depression is one of the most darkest periods in American economic history. We used to know that the only cause of the Great Depression is the crash of the stock market, but that is not true at all. Some historians and economists says that we can list more causes. At the end of the 1920s, the United States had the largest economy in the world. At this time, the firms earned record profits and reinvested these funds on expansion. At the same time, the salaries increased and the economy get better. As a consequence of this, the middle-class Americans had already employed their new funds in purchasing things with appliances on installment plans. The banks hadn't had guarantees and they didn't establish their limits, so they lent money to inversionists. The farmers were unavailable to spark any sort of recovery because of the love of the prices. When the depression spread across the Atlantic, Europe bought fewer American products, worsening the situation. The consequence of this was the stock market crash in 1929. Exist two important days of this crash. The really beginning of this was the Cold Black Thursday, take place in October 24, when the stock market crash begins. But this was not the worst situation. After a few recovery between the Friday and Monday, the Black Tuesday had place in October 28, where the stock index fell more than any other day of the exchange. And after that, downs continued until January when touched bottom. As a consequence, throughout the 1930s, over 9,000 banks failed, and by 1933, more than 11,000 of the nation's 25,000 banks had failed. As banks fail, people simply lost their savings. As a consequence, they created an American economic policy with Europe that charged a high tax for imports from foreign countries, and as a consequence of this tariff was that less trade occurred between America and foreign countries. This suffered with the Franklin Roosevelt New Deal that brought America out of the Great Depression by providing jobs and relief, but the country didn't fully recover until 1941. The Great Depression was a direct cause of the rise of the extremism in Germany leading to the World War II, that at the same time improved the economy when munitions and ammunition factories geared up for the war. We can say that the Great Depression timeline spanned approximately 12 years, with unemployment reaching its highest point in 1933, when 25% of the American workers.
Totalitarianism. A type of government in which a single-party dictatorship owns the control in every aspect of public and private life, imitating the nationalism in an extreme way. Individual rights are not allowed and people's opinions are silenced constantly. The use of internet is highly restricted. Some countries nowadays with this type of government are the following ones. North Korea. Kim Jong-un is the current leader of this nation. Some organizations have reported several public executions, torture, slave labor, and infanticide. North Korea is not involved in any international treaty or has restriction of nuclear weapons. China. This country is described as an authoritarian state since the citizens own a few privileges. However, the government tried to fool others by creating false rights people there do not own. There have been hundreds of deaths caused by the fight for a democracy. Iraq. There have been lots of cruel massacres in order to cause fear in citizens under the old regime of Saddam Hussein. Journalists are brutally killed in this country so that information can be controlled. The illegal torture of prisoners and the persecution of women are common issues some organizations are dealing with, as well as the fight for a democracy. Benito Mussolini was born in 1883 in Italy. He rose to power in the start of World War I as an opponent of the fascism. He became Prime Minister of Italy in 1922. Mussolini exploited its army, sending them to Libya, Somalia, Ethiopia, etc. So that later, in 1930, his armed forces got exhausted. Mussolini allied to Hitler because of his leadership in World War II. Benito Mussolini coined the term totalitario in the early 1920s to describe the new fascist state of Italy, which one who describes as all within the state, none outside the state, and none against the state. Later that year, totalitarianism became a single-party power. At the time he became prime minister, he started moving its armed forces, for example, helping the nationalists with the Spanish Civil War. But his military adventures in 1935 to 1939 left his armed forces exhausted. Mussolini was a racist dictator. He depreciated people who were not born directly in Italy. He wanted them to get out of his country. Mussolini originated an economic system called economic fascism that was acclaimed in his heyday. It influenced US economic policy during the 1930s. This kind of economic ideology involved private ownership and government control of the economy. Individuals continued to own their property and their businesses, but without the right to do what they wanted. Government told everybody what they must do and not do. Economic fascism is a variety of socialism. Politicians know better than private citizens what should be done. Government alone, Mussolini insisted, is in the right position to see things from the point of view of the general welfare. World War I left the Italian economy in chaos. Runaway spendings, high taxes, budget deficits, war debts, inflation, and unemployment. Mussolini recognized that he probably wouldn't be able to retain power very long if the chaos continued.
The human rights that were violated in the regime of Mussolini is the Article 2 everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedom set forth in this declaration, without distinction of any kind such as race, color, sex, language, religion, political, or other opinion. This human right was violated because Mussolini demonstrated a difference of races based on political ideologies where superior of certain racial group is held in front of others. Article 5 that no one shall be subjected to torture or to cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment. In this, it was found the obra that was a group in the region of Mussolini that any who opposed to the fascists regularly used torture against subject enemies of the state, the party, and the people. The Article 1 that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act toward one another in a spirit of brotherhood. In this article was violated because women don't have all the rights that the men have and they become inferior. The Article 10 gives everybody the right to the freedom of expression, which includes to the freedom that host opinion and receive and impart information and ideas without state interference. This one because in the Mussolini regime it talked about that the state monopolized the truth and propaganda while any criticism is rejected.